Welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 746. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camera. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to cover some news in Formula One and some news in other sports because, you know, we're not that snobbish around here. Or are we? Well, to find out if we are or not, I have to introduce my co-host tonight, which of course means, that's right, I got to go all the way to the right coast of America, really, in our nation's capital, where she does some stuff with like questions and numbers and then produces like incredible data. I don't know how that works, but she's a genius at it. You know her, you love her, the lovely, the redoubtable. Grace, how you doing?
I think maybe that should be like what's like the epithet on my tombstone or something. Like, I don't know what she does, but she's a genius. That's nice. That summarizes many things.
It's
I like
good.
that.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
I don't know what it is, but she's damn good at it.
Yeah, right. Like, all right, very good. I mean, that would leave you thinking if you rolled up on that tombstone, right? You're like, oh, I need to find out some more information
If
here.
I rolled up, I'd say, wait a minute, Grace. I'd Google that one.
Yes, my minor internet celebrity, right? Like
Yeah.
that'll definitely come up for sure.
Yeah, they would look at it and say, "Wait a minute, she was like into Formula One racing. What did she do?
Is that NASCAR?
What is that, NASCAR? Is that what they do at the Indy 500?" And be honest out there, Formula One fans, and not that there's anything wrong, because I'm going to talk about IndyCar tonight. But be honest, American Formula One fans, how many times have you been asked by people who don't know, and it doesn't make them wrong, it's just they're not following Formula One, but how many times have you been asked, oh, well, what sport do you watch? Baseball, football? No, I watch Formula One racing. And they say, oh, that's what they race at Indy, right? How many times?
Yeah.
Every single time.
But I would take that because that's at least closer, right? Like that's at least open wheel racing, right?
That's right. That's right.
I was thinking ham, you said bacon. We're at least in the same animal here, right? Like,
right.
You right? You didn't say chicken nuggets, right? So
right. And my patented answer always is, because you're not being patronizing. They don't know, and that's okay. I always say, no. That is open wheel racing.
Right.
It's a great series, no doubt about it. But Formula One is sort of a global European centric sport. And then I always say, like Monaco and they're like, oh yeah. Once you say Monaco, they get it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they didn't get it before, everybody's seen Iron Man now. Isn't it Iron Man 2 that he's in Monaco? So people are
with what's his face?
All right.
The bad guy. With the electric whips that cuts the cars in half.
I don't remember.
Mickey Rourke.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. He's had a circuitous route to his career, hasn't he?
Yes, for sure. But I was going to say, unfortunately, Flip is downstairs. If he was upstairs in any room right now, he'd be yelling the answer from off stage, and then I could look really smart, like I would know, because he knows, but I don't know. What do I know?
Well, it's because he has Google.
I know he reads a lot of comic books.
Right. Reads a lot of comic books.
So
he already knows what's going to happen in this season of Walking Dead. Then.
Yes, I don't know if he's still kept. He did read a lot of The Walking Dead. I don't know if he's kept up on it though. We stopped watching the TV show, so I don't know. But he did know, and then it was always. I mean, my favorite part of going to any of the Marvel movies is that afterwards I get the nerd debrief of everything that was wrong. I'm like, let me get something to drink and go. Right? I enjoy that. Well, the Scarlet Witch would never look like that, and this would be this, and she would have never done that thing. And in the comic book 742, this would have never happened. So. I'm like, I'm here for it. It's like my own built-in Looper video or something. Like he's going to tell me everything that went wrong, or I can just watch his face because he knows. Watch something and I can see him leaning front. I'm like, ooh, something good's coming because he knows.
Because he's like the Marvel Delphic Oracle over there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but at this point, aren't you a little marveled out?
No, I don't know.
No?
I think we started watching the What Ifs. Those are I've enjoyed those. Those are interesting. I liked, Bucky and the Falcon. I can't think of it. Sam and Bucky go to Europe.
Sam.
I enjoyed that series. Was fun. I like them.
Yeah,
they're fine. They're nice. They're just nice. Like a fun jaunt. It's not too serious. Like we're now watching the Mayor of Easton. I'm like, I'll take
I guess
some
they're
Marvel.
fun
Those are,
and
like,
nice,
fun.
as long as you're not Scarlett Johansson, apparently. So.
Yeah, I haven't watched Black Widow yet, but that's also the person, not the movie, right? Like,
It's right. Yeah.
You know,
Hey, Grace,
fair to
I'm
her.
loving it.
Look at that. Dun, 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 dun.
I'm loving it.
I bet you got that from Stoffel Van Dorn, right? You got that
I
shipped
went
right
over to I went over to the McDonald's in Kortrijk, Belgium.
Yeah.
And picked this up right
There you
there. Do you know I had a Royale with cheese?
Yes. I'll just push all these buttons. One of these will give me a hamburger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's all good. But yeah, I'm in on that. You even watch MODOK. I think that, it's fine. Whatever. It's still again, less serious. I'm in for that.
Yeah.
Life is hard enough.
Yeah, but see, it's like it's all the remakes, man. It's like I like Will a lot, but I liked Omega Man with Chuck Heston. That's old school, man.
Yeah.
They're people. So we're the greatest people. Come on.
I don't know. I mean, that's fine. Whatever. I have space for all of them. I think teach his own. We can have Corona. We can have Guinness. It's fine.
That's right. That's right. Hey, Grace, did you happen to this weekend squeeze in any of the 24 Hours of Le Mans? Remember, it normally happens in June, but it happened this weekend because it was postponed. And they put 50,000 butts in seats this weekend. That was like, 20% of what they normally would have at that race. But it was great to see the crowd back, and they were really digging it. Did you happen to see any of that?
I did not.
What?
I know.
This just in. Grace, too busy watching Marvel movies over the weekend and did not see the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Wow. Okay. Well, let me get you up to speed here.
It's sports cars. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, man, you're going to hurt Paul's feelings now.
I know. I'd hurt Flip's feelings too. He would watch it.
This is Paul's gig. This is his bag, baby.
I understand. And for Paul.
And for Paul, yeah.
But yeah, on a given weekend.
Okay.
I gotta leave the house sometime.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I did watch it, and so I got to say big congratulations to Toyota for their terrific win of the hypercar class win this weekend. The number 7 car, who usually is the one that loses, was actually the one that won, and they took the checkered flag ahead of the number 8 car. So that was good. Also, big congrats to Ferrari and AF Corsa. Now I can't read the letters AF without all the hip kids and what that means, As F Corsa, right?
It should be Corsa AF. Then.
It should be Corsa
funny,
AF.
Like Ferrari Corsa AF.
Yeah, I think if they just move the AF to the back of that and say Corsa AF, I think it would be perfect.
That's it.
So they took victories in both the LMGT classes. It was a fun race to watch. Even the first 45 minutes or so was the craziest part of the race. But I tended to notice this year, and I'll be curious to talk to my longtime friend, one Paul Charsley. I'll be interested to get his feeling on it because it seemed like there was, I don't know, maybe I was just really hypersensitive this year, but it seemed like there was a little more disparity in the driving across the different driver rankings this year compared to years in the past. But I don't know. You have to get a professional driver's opinion on that. I'm not one, by the way, but Paul is, so I'll have to get his thoughts on that. But anyway, congratulations to Toyota for doing a great job. And now that you've conquered that, get your butts back to Formula One.
Only to leave again, I'm sure.
All right. All right. Hey, other big congratulations.
Yes.
So here in St. Louis, where I live, which if you're global, St. Louis is kind of in the middle of America.
Yeah.
And we're often referred to as, by people in Grace's town, we're often referred to as like knuckle draggers or big head, no teeth people.
No, you're just you're the flyover state.
And they call us the flyover states. Yeah. Never mind that all the food comes out of here, but yeah.
I've never called you any of those other things. But I have called you flyover states.
Yes, you have.
You're all lovely people out there.
Right. But in St. Louis, the gateway to the West, we do have a racetrack called Gateway, and Indycar started coming back to Gateway. I was at the last race back in 2001-ish, before they started coming back. That was the last race. It was on my birthday, as a matter of fact. And it was a good race, and I hung out with Mario and all those guys, and it was a lot of fun. Scott Pruitt and I, we were like this, Scott Pruitt and I. I got pictures of Scott Pruitt and I. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but they were back at Gateway. It's a tough track. It doesn't seem like it would be. It's a short oval. But congrats to Joseph Newgarden, who took the win here in St. Louis at Gateway. And there's a lot of attrition at this race. I don't know, it was like 9 or 10 cars out. And it took some of the heavy hitters in the points chase out. So it was a good race. I enjoyed it. It was also great. Now everybody's like, oh my gosh.
Get to the show!
This is the show!
This is the show!
It's the off season. We have 3 weeks to fill, people.
I know. And this is where it ties into Formula One.
Right.
And if everyone would just, bear with me here, I will get to it. But anyway, it was also the first oval for Romain Grosjean.
A prodigious talent.
He's a prodigious talent. And I got to say, Romain, folks, did a fabulous job in that race. I mean, he was back mid-pack, he got his car hooked up and started just scything through the traffic, making them look like they were all pinned to the tarmac. And he came all the way through, and, he's getting his sea legs for oval racing.
Right.
Then he made a pit stop. He came out and was like, whoa, cold tires, whole different deal, right? And struggled with that. And then they gambled, and they got a lap down, but that was just a gamble they took on the yellow flag. But
yeah.
Anyway, he did a fabulous job, did Roma. And my hope is that he'll find a second career and much success in IndyCar because he is an immensely fast and talented driver, and Saturday night certainly proved it.
Yeah. And he should start making those I'm not lettuce shirts that I keep pushing. I think that's a marketing, and then take one to Paul Tracy. I think that's a marketing genius move right there. I don't know what she does, but she's good at it. So I'm not lettuce. I think that would be a great shirt for the Romain Grosjean fans.
I think it'd be perfect. Romain Grosjean. I'm not lettuce.
I'm not lettuce.
So it was good.
Yeah.
It was
very
good.
Yeah. IndyCar. And I think, the more talent you can get into that sport, the better it is for all of us. So I think that it'll make, IndyCar, in the early 2000s used to have a lot of either former Formula One talent or Formula One talent on its way to Formula One, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
I like the idea of us. I think I mentioned this last time you brought up IndyCar. I like that we're getting back to that kind of in a relationship between the two series again, and that hopefully you'll see some more going the other way towards Formula One, not just Formula One to IndyCar. But I think it's great for the series. I think the more talent you can get in there, the better. You always want the best driver. So
yeah, I know. It's great. Marcus Ericsson, the Swede, is in there.
That's right.
Romain Grosjean's in there, did a fabulous job. The Gateway, I think they just inked a new long-term contract with IndyCar, so that's good.
Excellent.
Everything looks positive in the IndyCar world. And it was a good race. I enjoyed it. I was flipping back and forth between Le Mans and IndyCar at commercial breaks,
Right.
It was crazy. So speaking of IndyCar, see how I did that? See how I tied all this together? It's just crafty how I wove these narratives together.
You're a professional.
I rose above it.
That's right.
So, anyway, do you remember when Michael Andretti was in Formula One? Do you remember that? Anyone?
It was a few moons ago.
It was. Yeah. Didn't quite work out for Michael.
Sure did not.
Right. But needless to say, I was reading an article about Michael Andretti having had preliminary discussion with Gene Haas about buying the Haas team for Andretti Motorsport to get into Formula One. Now, they said that it didn't go any further, just like a first, hey, how you doing, chat. It didn't go any farther than that. So
Here's the technical manual.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It didn't say like Gene was like, here, take it. None of that. But I just read the headline, so apologies, folks, for not knowing what was actually said or what Gene said or anything like that.
There was nothing like that. I mean, I read it was in Racer.
Was it? Okay, so nothing.
Not really.
Yeah. Okay.
It was more about, it was like a sentence about, hey, they met, they had a conversation. And then it was like, why this is interesting, from not just that he's an Andretti or that he's Michael Andretti, but that he has this not so great history with Formula One. And then when most people think of Andretti in Formula One, they think of Mario. They don't think of Michael because of that. So,
right.
But there wasn't a lot of like, this is what actually happened. Like you said, I think it was really just a like, hey,
they chatted.
Hey,
Yeah.
Hey,
so Michael went up, called Gene. Gene said, and Michael was kind of like,
not good enough, damn it, not good enough.
Okay. Yeah.
He's done with the CNC factory. It's now on to Michael, right?
Right. So, and so then I read the headline. I didn't read the article, but I read the headline, and I was thinking about it over the weekend when I was watching Le Mans. I was thinking, if I was Michael Andretti, what teams would legitimately be out there that you could buy? So Ferrari, no. Mercedes, Red Bull, no. You've basically got Haas. Renault is Alpine, so that's no.
Right.
AlphaTauri, no. So I was thinking, okay, so let's think of the ones on the left. So I was thinking about, I thought the team to me that makes the most sense for Michael to go buy is the Alfa Romeo Sauber team.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Because Dorilton just bought Williams.
Right.
So they're not, they're still, it's the honeymoon period for them, and they're scoring points now. And so Dorilton's going to be fat, dumb, and happy with where they're at. Gene seems like he's already heading down that Mazepan path, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what deal they have, but surely there's like a first right of refusal for Mazepan, or, if there's some sort of prevention clause in there that he can't sell without, who knows. But I think Gene's probably attached to the hip to the Russian. This left me thinking about the former team known as Sauber, who was bought by Longbow Capital a few years ago. Now, they've had a couple of years here to bleed on their investment, and they may have had enough fun given their midfield pace. And having said that, Alfa just did renew their deal with the team, Alfa Romeo did. And that's the whole Italian connection to Andretti, right? Alfa Romeo and Andretti. And the Hinwil organization is a very, very mature racing operation there in Hinwil, right? They've been around a long time. And to me, if I was Michael Andretti, I would buy the Alfa Romeo Sauber team.
Yes,
instead of Haas.
Get Kimi Räikkönen with it. So this was the Michael Andretti quote.
Oh, what did Michael say?
I feel like I'm doing your job.
Yeah, you are. Read.
It would be great, but there's a long way to go if it was to happen. If the right opportunity comes up, we'll be all over it. But we're not there yet. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
See, not much of a quote. But just so I don't forget, my actual favorite part of the story was that, so it says that in March, he filed with the SEC to take the new Andretti Acquisition Corporation public, right?
Yep.
And so I already love that Ferrari's stock symbol is race. Like, okay, Ferrari, way to go, right? So Michael Andretti's New York Stock Exchange symbol will be WNNR, winner.
Oh,
winner. First of all, I can't believe nobody else has taken that. But then Andretti is going to go with winner as his stock. So I think that's the tip. I think that's why, because he went public in March, that's why everybody's talking about it. But
yeah, right.
I do think I would much rather take Alpha as well. I don't think they have quite the issues, if you will, that Haas has, right? I think I'd rather take a team where everybody gets along and they're just consistent. I would much rather that over Haas. And I think the fact, even though Gene Haas is American, they're not based in the United States. It's not like, it's not like when Peter Windsor tried to have a team.
Right. You
know what I mean? So I think whether they're based in Switzerland or based in Italy,
it doesn't.
Or in England, right? It's still not in the United States. So he still has that problem.
Right.
And so I don't think you would buy Haas just because they're American. They're just probably, Gene is more than happy to get rid of all of this. It seems it's seeming that way for years now. So yeah,
I mean, unless Gene wanted to do that special Honda $1 buyout thing, then Michael would probably be all over it. But I don't think so. I think my hunch is that Gene is tied to Mazepan's dad.
Right. You're right. He made that deal with the devil, and
yeah,
he's got to live with it now.
I think that'd be difficult unless he'd have to work out some sort of tripartite agreement with, Mazepin and Andretti and all that. And if I was Andretti, I would have got the stock ticker Mario. Why not? Mario.
Maybe there is a Mario. I don't know. Maybe that's why you go with Winner. Yeah, I really can't believe that nobody else has taken Winner. I can't believe that's still available.
All right.
But
boy.
Yeah,
okay,
I think so.
We'll see.
We'll see. But I think the other thing too is it's been so long. I mean, Andretti was only in for a season, right? He wasn't in very long. But McLaren is totally new from the last 5 years, let alone the last 20 years. So
right.
I think that and I'd like to believe that Michael's also grown and changed and is a better human being now than he was then. And so it would be a better relationship and a different relationship. And certainly none of the people that were there when he was there as a driver are there now. So, it's a totally different ball game in that sense. It's not like our jobs where if you came back to a job 10 years later, that would be all the, some of the same people and they hated you before and they'd still going to hate you. So, I think that's what makes it okay. I think it's only, us long timers, I guess, that go, oh, Michael Andretti. But most people are like, whatever, that makes sense, right? He's an Andretti.
Michael's been around a long time.
But Ron Dennis isn't there anymore, so it'll be fine.
Right. As long as Ron, Ron's not there. So what does it really matter?
That's right. But nobody knows. And he also wouldn't have to move because apparently that was part of the big issue, right? Was that he didn't want to have to live in England.
Yeah, right.
So he wouldn't have to live in Switzerland and he wouldn't have to live in Italy and he wouldn't have to live in England to run the team.
Right. All right. Let's see. What else is in the news? Oh, wait. That's right. Talking some Formula E, Grace. Apparently, Mercedes now will join BMW and Audi in leaving Formula E. Now, like I didn't see this coming, right?
Right.
But no, I had to listen to fans ram Formula E so far up my backside I could taste it, right? I argued that Formula E was the rightful place to innovate fully electric racing, and I actually still believe that. I think it is. But just like F1, the technology for electric power units is very expensive and takes resources, and that's exactly what Mercedes said. They said, quote, Mercedes-Benz today announced that it will conclude its ABB FIA Formula E success story as a team entrant and manufacturer at the end of Season 8 in August of 2022. Moving forward, the company will concentrate its works motorsport activities on Formula One, reinforcing the sport's status as the fastest laboratory for developing and proving sustainable and scalable future performance technologies. Now, here's the kicker. Listen to this. Quote, as part of the new strategic direction, the brand has deliberately chosen to shift resources for this accelerated ramp-up of electrification, including the development of 3 electric-only architecture to be launched in 2025. Therefore, Mercedes will reallocate resources away from its ABB FIA Formula E World Championship program and towards applying the lessons learned in competition to product development in series. End quote.
Could they get a few more letters in that acronym?
They need it. They need it. ABB FIA Formula E.
Yeah.
FIA Formula. Yeah, ABB FIA. I like it.
Formula E World Championship.
Formula E FE. ABB FIA FE.
Yeah, WC.
Yeah. WC. There you go. So now they're going to join BMW and Audi in leaving the sport, the series.
Right.
I can't imagine, Grace, that ABB is going to continue to spend millions as a title sponsor for a series of no manufacturers. Right. So I suspect that we're seeing the end of Formula E. Right. Would be my hunch. Now, in one sense, I could say, oh, that's a shame, and I hate to see this, and we could all sit around and wring our hands and be contrite about it. No, I'm not doing that this time. Now, I'm not trying to say I told you so, but I'm not letting this one just slide by, folks, because I took an absolute beating over my position on Formula E for everyone that was so heavy-handed and highbrowed, beating me up, saying that Formula E, this is the way it's going, you're an idiot, and blah, blah, you're, a Luddite and a Neanderthal. I said this would be the course that, EV would take. And I
Those
said
things can also be unrelated.
They can be, and EVs are still running in single-digit sales, but I was castigated for saying that the emperor has no clothes when it comes to Formula E. However, having said that, I was all for Formula E. I really was. And I was very pro Formula E because I thought this would be the perfect vehicle to really do that development in technology for full electric. And if you really wanted race to road relevancy, this would be a great place to do it, right?
Right. I agree.
And I also, I got to tell you, I was a little self-serving on this because I wanted them to keep their bloody hands off my desert. Yes, that's an old Pink Floyd song lyric. Meaning I wanted them to leave F1 alone, right?
Right.
Because we've seen the impact of the escalation of hybrid technology has had on both racing series now. And with Formula One, now we have cost caps because nobody can afford it. We bankrupted 3 teams. We had a half dozen teams on life support. The impact of the escalation of the hybrid tech has been really, really hard for the teams to justify, hence the cost cap. And now you have all the whining about damaged wings because nobody can afford it. Right.
Mostly from Christian Horner, but yes.
Yes. And yeah, right. So, or Ferrari actually was saying it. So,
of course.
So now Mercedes is keen to just continue their EV innovation within F1. But what that does tell me is that probably means that Mercedes, at the time they joined Formula E, there was a lot of, can I say, tumult in Formula One. Nobody really kind of knowing exactly where it's going. Are we all going to sign up for the new Concorde? Nobody really knows. Mercedes hedging their bets, saying, well, let's take a look at this Formula E. And if they did, that's fair enough. But they're going to continue their EV innovation within F1. So that tells me that they're most likely happy with the direction that Ross Brawn is taking with the new power unit going forward. Right? In order to say, hey, look, we're happy with it. And we think we can develop and innovate within those regulations. Right.
If they were people dating people, they've pushed the people out of orbit, right? Like some people always are like dating one person and have a few extra people kind of in orbit just in case it doesn't work out for them, right? So that person's serious when all those people that were in orbit kind of like poof disappear, right? And they really focus on this one person. So I think that's what's happened, right? Mercedes has no longer keeping multiple options in orbit. They are settling on one that they're happy with, and they're just going to focus on that.
So it would tell me they're probably happy with whatever the sort of, which also concerns me, by the way. But anyway.
Well, but Ross Brawn is our only choice. So, like if Ross can't do it, well, I don't know.
Well, you know what Ross said.
Life moves pretty fast.
Yep.
You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
You could miss it.
We're in trouble, though. If Ross Brawn literally is our Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like
he is
literally,
our Obi-Wan.
I don't know. I don't know what other option we have if this doesn't work.
I know. And he stood back and he just surveyed the entire, land of Formula One and said,
"You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy."
That's exactly what he said.
True. That is true.
So let's also consider the politics involved with this as well with the manufacturers. I mean, look, I'm not so obtuse to know that there isn't a tremendous amount of politics in this. So, and they all bought into sort of the race to road marketing bundle around Formula E, and that's fine. And it also sent a F1 a message that it's kind of like, okay, well, you guys figure out what you're doing. We're also looking at this over here. But at the end of the day, Grace, you're a lover of Tesla. You guys have an electric car. You love it. It's a great addition to your garage, and you guys really love it. Did you watch much Formula E?
No.
Right. And not that you're obligated to do so. No, but not that. And this is kind of my point, and I'm not calling you out, I swear. This is kind of my point. You love electric cars. You've got one. You've really enjoyed it. It's been a great purchase for you. You love the technology and where that's going. And yet you didn't watch Formula E. And I think this all goes back to the same thing that has been biting and nipping at Formula One's heels over the last 8-10 years. It's the same thing Formula E is. At the end of the day, I used to sit and watch them go 70 miles an hour, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. It goes back to your point. Deliver good racing, right?
That's right. People watch it. I was gonna say, I think to me your parallel is similar to the Bernie Ecclestone. Americans will watch if there was an American driver, which is also not true, right? So even if we had, somebody other than Scoot Speed representing our country in Formula One, it takes more than that to get people to watch.
Yeah, we had Alexander Rossi. Didn't matter. No, we've got an American team. Doesn't matter.
No, that's right. So I think it's the same thing, right? So to think that because I have an electric vehicle, which isn't what you're saying, right? Because I have an electric vehicle, I would watch Formula E, and I already watched Formula One. So the chance of me watching Formula E are higher than just somebody who owns a Bolt or whatever watching Formula E. Right. And no, because I really watch Formula One and MotoGP and some stick and ball sports, and that's my life, right?
Yeah, right. So, but there's only so much time in the day, and I get that too. But at the end of the day, you're going to gravitate the ones you're kind of, emotionally invested in, the one that have the most excitement. MotoGP certainly is among it. Yeah. And so I think that's always a difficult thing. I think Formula E is plus
that whining.
Yeah, I know.
That whining is right up there with the sound of watching basketball. Drill? No, I was gonna say I always complain about watching basketball. The squeaking of the
squeaking,
shoes,
yes,
the squeaking drives me nuts. And so while we haven't had fans in the stand, it just makes the squeaking louder. Like, drives me nuts because you can really hear it on TV, and then when you don't have any fans, now that's all you hear is the stupid squeaking, right? Right. Nike fixed the squeaking. To me, it's in that similar place that I just like. At some point, I'm like, the squeaking, I can't take it anymore. That whirling noise is like somewhere in like
I know
the hearing range of like
it's right here.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
It makes it less enjoyable, but. What I have watched some Formula E races. We've talked about them here. I think it had potential. I guess I wasn't quite sold on it, but wasn't quite unsold on it either. So
there you go.
We'll see.
So I understand, folks. I understand. And at one side, I would say, I feel bad. I'm sorry that if you loved that series. No, I'm not. Nah. After getting the living crap beat out of me by you people, I'm not apologizing. It's just kind of the way it goes, all right? Now you've got another series you can look at. Hold on. Paul just sent me this. This is so how Paul rolls.
It's really going to be like, I just tried this new beer. It was great.
Yeah. So he knows I'm up early walking my dog now. If you follow my Twitter account, you always see my videos of the waiting on the sun to rise. So at 5:00 this morning, he texted me. He said, well, here's the alternative Formula E, but it's pure ETCR series. So for all of you that are gnashing teeth and ripping robes over the apparent death of Formula E, you can go watch that series because that series is coming on. So there you go.
There you go.
Pure ETCR. There you go.
I thought you meant he was texting you like right at this moment. Which would have been funnier.
No, he texted me in the wee hours.
Very good. Very good.
I know what I'm doing at 5 a.m., but I have no idea what he's doing at 5 a.m., and that's what grieves me the most.
He also has dogs, though, but just little dogs.
Yeah, he does.
He has let you out in the backyard kind of dogs.
Yeah, let him out in the backyard.
Right.
My dog has got like a, massive car battery inside of him. I mean, it's like at 5 a.m. he's, we're ready to go. He's a Australian Shepherd. So, I mean, he is like, fully charged battery, ready to roll. And if you don't burn that energy off,
you're going to live.
Everybody pays the price. Including the house, the sofa, everybody pays, right? Everything in the house gets herded and nipped and nose bumped. That's just what he's born to do, right? So he'll be in there herding the stools and, it's the cushions and it's hilarious. He's awesome.
I had a friend who had a corgi, right, which is also a herding dog. And so it was always funny because she had like a window between her kitchen and her living room. So while she was cooking, I talked to her through the past, right? Because then I wasn't in the kitchen, but we could still have conversation, right? And her dog hated that. Like he's always trying to get me to go into the kitchen. And then he had to have hip surgery, so they put the cone of shame on him. Most dogs hate the cone of shame. Oh no, Nigel figured out like this is an even better weapon than my nose. Like people ignore my nose, but when I'm ramming this hard plastic into your leg, you move, right? Like he really learned how to use that to his advantage. And he also used it as a food scoop, which I thought was great too, because he could just kind of like scoop the food right in. Like I'm like, that little guy was smarter than any of us. So
awesome. Yeah, no, it's the same with Buckley. You know, when we had the the surgery and he had the cone of shame on there, man. You know, he just run up there, just nail you with that cone, man. He was just, taking you out at the knee. It was like, oh my gosh.
Like, all right, I'll move.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so they have learned. Those herding dogs are like,
oh my gosh,
cone of shame, excellent. You will pay,
everybody pays with the cone of shame.
Yeah, I know how that is, right? I guess I saw. I mean, you have a puppy. The kittens are still that way too. Like if you don't give them a good romp at night. I have a puppy
here. So for the YouTubers, you can see my puppy. There you go.
They'll be up at 3 a.m. So you either play with them at night before you go to bed, or Levi's going to be.
I know. Yeah, you got to burn the energy. Right? You have to burn the energy. It's no two ways
guy.
Away. So anyway, all right. Hey, and big news. Oh boy, I don't know if we should talk about this. So I stumbled on I wish I could remember, in all fairness, there was a blog that my bestest buddy Koen from Belgium sent me. And I should give them honorable mention because I did not find this article on the Journal de Montreal per se. I saw it through the blog. Maybe a GP blog. I can't remember. But anyway, kudos to them. They had a little blurb and link to the actual source, which was Journal de Montreal. Montreal, oui. Circuit. Gilles Villeneuve.
That's right.
So anyway, there was an article in there that Toto Wolff and Lawrence the Stroll could be being investigated in Europe. I was reading this article over at the Journal de Montréal, which suggested that Mercedes boss, you got it,
get down,
Toto Wolff may be under investigation for stock purchases he made in Aston Martin back in November 2020, or at least that's the time frame they started looking. The article said that the reason for this review was possible suspicion of insider trading. Oh,
I have this manual. You might want to look at it.
Exactly, yes. The article goes on to say that the case was subsequently transferred for review to the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, as Aston shares are listed on the London Stock Exchange. In particular, the article says that Toto Wolff acquired stocks in April 2020 for a 0.9% stake in Aston Martin. They estimated that Wolff's share is worth around $36 million. Thanks. The key to the issue, as pointed out by the paper, is that 6 months after his transaction, it was announced that Mercedes would take an additional stake of up to 20% of Aston Martin, and that also the British manufacturer announced in May of 2020 the appointment of a new CEO in Tobias Motors, who was boss of the AMG subsidiary of Mercedes. Okay, you may say, okay, so what? Well, Aston Martin's stock value, increased a lot with these two announcements. Right. Between April 17th of 2020 and today, Aston stock has climbed more than 60%. So, the other element, at least implied in the article, is that Larry the Stroll could also face some questions about his relationship with Wolff and any participation in the Wolff investment. Key is here, did Wolff know of the move from Mercedes and appointment of Tobias? That's what they're all looking at. Now, the paper reached out to Mercedes F1, who denied any such improprieties, of course, and Aston Martin had no comment on the situation. I would assume that the purchases were all disclosed and done according to German investment regulations, but there would seem to be some concern if there's an official investigation into the matter. At least that's how I take it. If everything is legit and Wolf is on the straight and narrow with his investment, then it's one hell of a return on his investment.
Yeah, for sure. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Not too shabby.
Up 60%. He just made 60% on his $36 million.
Oh.
That's not a bad day.
No, that's right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah, that's why you won't find him at the Stoffel Van Doren McDonald's in Belgium.
No, he and Susie won't be rocking up to the McDonald's and the Expo Center in Kortrijk. Not going to happen.
They will not be. Not with that kind of money. But I mean, I think that would always be. Some of it is also optics, right? So that's always the thing. So you can still be legitimately above boards, and yet the optics look a little fishy, and it may not be a good idea. And so there's some part of me that's like, well, I get it that you saw this was a good idea, but the optics aren't that great, and you really couldn't find anything else to invest in. I don't know. I think it's a little fishy there, sir. And well, I don't know. I also will say, only slightly related, because you mentioned Montreal, there was an SNL sketch from a couple years ago where they did a morning show called Hello Bonjour, which I thought was hilarious. But if you've never been to Montreal, I'm sure it's not. But they really did the whole Montreal, but that was their answer to everything. It was a morning show, like the Today Show or something. They do.
I've never been to Montreal.
Oh, we should go. It's lovely. It's really nice. But they do everywhere you go. They go hello bonjour, because you speak both languages. So it was always fun. And then I just also walked around going hello bonjour, because if you say bonjour, they assume you speak French, and I don't speak any French, and so then that was awkward. So just speak English, because they speak that too in Montreal, and it's fine. But
I could bring my wife. She speaks fluent French, so
there
I could bring her.
And she could say bonjour. She wouldn't have to say hello bonjour. Like I do. So,
right. I could order a cheese omelet. That's about an omelette du fromage. That's about all I can do.
But like I said, then the rest of the conversation, I could do enough French, and then then they would go into a much faster conversation. I'm like, whoa.
Right.
I don't speak French. I was just trying to not be the ugly American. They always tell you, try the language, try to be, especially because Montreal, there's the kind of English section and the very French section. And so when in the French section, I was trying to be the good American and speak some French. And then they kept speaking French to me. And I went, I'm an American just trying not to be a terrible person. I don't speak French. But people were nice. They were very lovely about it. So, but anyway, hello, bonjour. Very good.
It's a little different than the French, because my wife lived in France for a while, and they're French, and so they clearly know. Now she speaks fluent French, but she's an American and speaks fluent French, and so she would go to a shop and she would speak French, and they could tell she had an American accent. They knew she was American, so they'd answer in English. And so she would say it back in French. They refused to speak French to her because she was an American.
Well, the French.
Well, it is the French, So there you go.
They are their own group of people. And
they are.
Canadian French and French.
Different.
A little different, right? Different deal. Kind of like Spanish has that same thing going for it. So.
Yes, right.
But anyway, it's nice. You should come. We should all just someday in the after times, and we can all go to a race together. We should all go to Montreal. It's lovely. It's really a fun time, and you just metro everywhere, so then that's easy too.
And we can get Paul liquored up.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Although I don't know if I'm going to send those Senate S's anymore. That's a far ass walk.
That's a long walk, Grace.
Everyone's because I've been a couple times, and I usually sit in the hairpin. And so this past time, I was convinced that the Senate S's were the better place to watch racing, which they are. But it is a 7-hour longer walk than sitting in the hairpin, which I also always enjoyed sitting in. And it's right there. I don't have to walk through the woods and hope this is the right path to my seats.
Exactly.
But anyway, Montreal's nice, and I think this is optics. This isn't very good for you, Toto Wolff. But
no, it's not.
If it does make Wolf 1 happen, I'm all for it.
There you go. That's
it.
All right. In other news, hey, I was reading about who the most improved team was from last year.
Okay.
Since it's sort of mid-summer break, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And
so you gave me the answers in the notes. I could have just guessed. That would have been more fun, but.
Oh, it's true. Yeah.
All right.
Well, it was an article that Adam Cooper, he had a very nice piece over at Motorsport,
Yeah, very good.
where he talked about each team individually. So you can go over and get his thoughts and his commentary on the teams. I'd recommend it. Adam does a great job. Can I get on a F1 journalist rant for a minute?
Yes, it's your show.
Okay. Here's my F1 journalist rant. Guys like Adam Cooper, Mark Hughes, Jonathan Noble, Andrew Benson, certainly Nigel Roebuck, that goes without saying. Some of these veteran F1, I don't know what these publications are paying them, but it's not enough. And the reason I say that, and the same goes for the veteran F1 photographers out there.
Right.
I mean, it's guys like Adam. You know, Jonathan Noble's the same way, but Adam's the same way. So is Mark Hughes. And I spent some time talking to Mark Hughes. And save for Nigel Roebuck, both Nigel and Mark couldn't have been more delightful to talk to. Super nice guys.
Yeah.
I met Adam briefly at one of the F1 sort of parties when we were in Austin. Didn't get a really chance to talk to him. But anyway, Adam's
he just
wicked.
did the circuit for some
Well, he did the Franz
Franz
Toast thing,
right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what Franz Toast did. No, but Adam and those guys are wickedly smart on Formula One because they've been covering it for decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason. And for all of you publications out there, I understand in this F1 TV, same thing. We need to get the young hip crowd and all that. Okay, all right, look. These are seasoned Formula One journalists who forgot more about Formula One than these new 20-somethings you're hiring for peanuts. And the problem that I'm having is that the new 20-somethings, the content is shit. That's the problem. When Adam writes something, or Mark writes something, or Nigel, or any one of these guys, even Andrew Benson, or pick one, when they write something, Jonathan Noble does a great job of this too. It's got context. It's couched in history. It talks about precedent. It talks, there's a lot to learn about what these guys unpack and unfold in their everyday writing.
Right.
You don't get any of that by the other people. Don't just pop in and become your premier writers for an F1 magazine, because all of the guys I just mentioned had to cut their teeth. They had to learn somewhere. They had to follow the greats like Nigel and Jenks and all those guys. So, it just, if you're listening out there, follow these journalists and read them because you'll learn something. Anyway, sorry, Adam, to go on a rant on your behalf. He didn't, obviously he doesn't know me, but
no,
do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And what I was going to say is that I think in this sense, it's no different than any other job, right? You always want to have the Michael Schumacher and bring in the Felipe Massa, right? Because if you only rely on Michael Schumacher, eventually he's going to retire because he's old, and you're not going to have anybody younger to fill in behind him. So you always want that kind of mentorship. That's true in any job, right? Yep. You can't just bring in the Felipe Massas and go, and our team's amazing, right? Like that's not the way any job works. And so I think you always have to have mentorship. I don't know. I think that's,
I think that's
some relationship between, your seasoned veterans and the newer generation. Because the other thing too is that the kids are going to know things, like the kids know how to use software I don't know how to use, but they can help me, and I can say, okay, well, here's how we could apply that, or here's we used to do it this way. How can we do it more efficiently? Like there's a synergy, if you will, between the younger kids coming out of school that know things that I don't know because I'm 20 years removed from being in college, but I have the field experience that they don't have yet. And you want that synergy to work together. And that's what gives you a good product. It's not just bringing in the kids or just keeping the old people, right? And so I think you'd have to have the same thing in journalism. I think you'd have to have the connections. And I mean, because I think that's true in any job too, right? Like I go to a conference, I know lots of people. So what do? I bring the junior people with me. Like, oh, Todd, Todd's great. I worked with Todd at this company. Hey, Todd, this is my, my friend so-and-so, and she's new and she's just coming to this field, and we have a conversation, right? Like that's what you do. And so I think that you have to have those connections because that's how the newer generation is going to come in. And I agree that I think it is faulty, and this happens at every company too, that they just think the 20-year-olds that know how to do whatever cool, machine learning thing is like the new thing. And you're like, right, but you have to apply that. It has to be a fit for you. So
yeah, you can't
just
Google experience or Google wisdom. It just doesn't happen.
I just can't collect information off of Reddit. So
it doesn't happen. And
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. Look, we all had to cut our teeth and apprentice. We were all apprenticing and, coming up through the ranks and learning from veterans. And, that is normal life. But a few years ago, it seemed like that was all thrown out the window. And a lot of these veteran F1 journalists are scrambling around for jobs, you know, and it was coincided with the publication and print dying. Right. So you had this print dying, no ad sales. Everything was moving to digital. You had a lot of these journalists, these seasoned veteran F1 journalists looking for jobs and roles. And, thankfully, a lot of them ended up at digital platforms like Motorsport and Autosport and all those, in Motorsport Magazine, that kind of thing. But they've had to hustle, back in the halcyon days of being a premier F1 journalist and getting paid to go to every race and all that. They got to hustle they work their tails off. So anyway, bless their hearts. I just always gravitate to that. And my issue was when all this was going down, there was a lot of constraints on resources. Ad sales are down, print was dying. So we just hired a bunch of 20-somethings and paying peanuts to write about the show, and the content just sucked.
Right.
And so now you kind of follow where these F1 journalists end up, and that's the sources you go to read it, and they're the ones that benefit from the clicks because they have the best content,
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
I think last time we discussed this, I said that it's like chefs, right? You don't follow a restaurant, you follow a chef, right?
Yeah,
and so this is the same thing. So
yeah.
If Jonathan Noble, you really like what he's cooking, you just follow him to whatever restaurant, because that other restaurant may suck once he leaves.
Right.
And so,
so note to those platforms too, because wherever Mark Hughes goes, that's where I'm going to go to read.
That's right.
Content,
absolutely.
And
And
same
I think
for
it's
Nigel.
I think it's just like everything else. I think that's short-sighted and short-term, to just think, oh, we got this 20-year-old, or, I just don't think you can do one without the other. And to just hire some, cheap talent isn't going to pay off long-term.
Yeah.
And so you're just going to get some short burst, and then that'll be it, because they don't have any more content and they don't have the connections. And like I said, I think that in every field that matters, but it has to matter in Formula One, that you know people, and that, to be really successful, you have to be like, Martin Brundle doing the grid walk, right? Like where you're just grabbing people, or, Peter Winter was always really great at that when he used to do it for the American broadcast, right? Like just being like, oh, and this is so-and-so, and this is so-and-so, and this is my friend so-and-so, and that's my friend so-and-so, and I worked with this guy and I know this person. And you have to have that connection, because otherwise who's going to talk to you? They don't trust you. You're not reputable. They don't know what you're about. How are you ever going to get your foot in the door? So
yeah, I agree. You got to start somewhere, but this was, it was a bad move by a lot of these platforms that just got rid of all the seasoned veterans, and I think they panicked too. Yeah, I do too, and they paid the price for that. So anyway, and I don't know all these F1 journalists. You may know some. Maybe they're jerks. I don't know. I'm not endorsing them. I have met Mark Hughes. I have met Nigel, and they were delightful guys. So anyway, so there you go.
Just like a chef. I don't know all them either. I just know who makes good food. I have met Jose Andre. He's lovely as well. So that's all I got. But I don't know a lot of chefs, but I know who makes good food.
You haven't met Aaron?
No.
Okay, so here's what Adam did. He ran the numbers.
Okay.
And this is based on points and position in the championship last year during summer break versus this year. And the points different after 11 races from 2020 to 2021. Ferrari are up 83 points from where they were last year. Red Bull up 80 points from where they were. McLaren up 47 points. Williams up 10 points. AlphaTauri up 1 point. Alfa Romeo down 2 points. Haas down 3 points. Renault Alpine down 37 points. Renault's your big loser in all of this.
Surprise.
Yeah, Racing Point, Aston Martin down 72 points. That's another big loser there.
Yeah.
And Mercedes down 88, but they're still vying for the championship. So the percentages are Ferrari's up 103% over last year. Racing Point, Aston Martin down 60% versus last year, which is brutal.
That is brutal because Racing Point's Force India, Racing Point, Aston Martin in their earlier Force India, Racing Point iterations, were always a solid midfield, and they just haven't kind of gotten that together this year. And
I mean, last year at this time, Racing Point was third in the championship, and now they're seventh.
Right. So I think that's there's some issues going on there because I think they always out of the box were always like they're always that team that you just thought like you can do, like this is your year that you're going to make it into the top three or that you're going to be considered a big team, and they never could get out of the mid pack. Sometimes they were front of the mid pack, but that's not where they are this year.
No, it's not. And so you've got, they went from third all the way down to seventh. That was a big impact. Paul and I talked about this on the preseason show too. We talked about it's an all new, their design, all that. And we kind of suggested they may go backwards this year, and they have.
They sure have.
But Ferrari went from sixth all the way up to third, which is a big jump.
And again, right? Like Ferrari, I always have this, like, I want Ferrari on one hand to do well, right? Because I want more competition in the front. Ferrari should be doing better than they have been. Big Carlos Sainz fan. I want them to do well. Charles Leclerc is a good driver. I want them to do well. And then I remember it's Ferrari, and I hate all of them. And why do they always put me in this position? I'm rooting for a team I hate. But I do think it is a positive for the sport that Ferrari seem to have figured it out. And hopefully that they stay around. I don't need them winning a lot, but I'd like them to stay, towards the front of the pack. I think that's better for the sport.
And it's always a big emotion.
Right.
That's right.
This is Enzo Ferrari.
This is Enzo Ferrari.
It's a shitbox. Yeah.
Right.
You can't say that.
Why not?
It's a shitbox.
Okay, let's do some mailbag, shall we?
You got mail.
Sure. I think.
We got Albin's cats, don't we?
We do, but I was just gonna say we say that Flip and I say that to each other all the time. You can't say that.
Yeah, you can't say that. Oh no, you can't say that.
Oh, you can't say that.
No, you can't say that. All right, time for some Albin's cats.
What you know about rolling down in the deep when your brain?
That's right.
All right.
Grace's favorite, Albin's cats.
It is.
All right, what do you got for us, Grace?
Okay, so I lost some part of my life on Sunday to this YouTube channel. And so I, being the person I am, will now share it with the rest of you. So you too can lose some considerable portion of your life going down this rabbit hole that I went to. So it's a YouTuber page, site. I don't know. I'm old. What's the right phrase? But anyway.
YouTube channel?
Sure, channel.
Yeah.
I guess just subscribe to him, whatever. Ring the bell, whatever. Anyway, it's called Out of Context Formula One, Out of Context F1. Are you familiar with this channel? All right. Well, you should be. Whatever you're all doing right now, because what it literally is a bunch of like 15-second. It's exactly what it says. It's like 15 seconds, random things, just like you watch it and you go, "What did I just watch?" Or "Why did they do that?" Like, what was Kimmy thinking? Like, and you never stop. And there's like eons of these clips that are, and especially being in the United States, I've never seen any of these things, right? Because even if it's like cut from a commercial, we don't get those commercials, or it's cut from some presser thing, or we don't see that stuff here. So it's even better because it can actually be some sort of corporate press thing that we never saw in this country. And so I'm telling you, if you're like, I got like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but I need some joy in my life, I highly recommend just randomly pick things. There's like Christian Horner at a trampoline park with his kids. That was great. That one I laughed really hard because he totally biffs it. It's what every parent should know better than. Never. You're too old to be at a trampoline park. Like, just be like, no, kids, I'm good. I'm going to go over here and drink my beer. You jump on the trampoline because you're close to the ground, right? Like, no, he totally biffs it. I'm like, it was we watched that one several times because I enjoyed it every time. But
that's awesome.
Out of context F1, it's guaranteed to suck you in. And if I ever find the people behind that YouTube channel, they're geniuses in like 15-second little bites of genius.
Excellent. I'll have to check it out.
There you go. I'm telling you, but make sure you set aside some time.
All right. I will. All right. Are we ready for mailbag now?
Yes. And I also, before you go, I also think we watched several clips. There's one of like, some, because Ted Kravitz, surprise, his notebook gets featured in this a lot because Ted is just running out of context F1.
He's freewheeling, man.
He could just be his own site, really, which is what makes the notebook fun because, again, he's doing it live, right? So he's just rolling with things as they happen and things that come off of his top of the head. And so it's often all out of context and it's great. And then they have this clip with Will Buxton and I'm like, wow, they both look so young. Yeah, this is like 3 years ago these clips are from. I'm like, man, the pandemic really aged us all a lot. They looked like young and spry and now nobody looks like that now.
It's funny.
So yeah. All right. I'm ready now. Mailbag.
Okay, mailbag.
You got mail.
We got an email in the mailbag. We got a comment from Mike Smith. How you doing, Mike? It's a really good question. Mike said, what am I missing regarding refueling pit stops? I've heard numerous pundits and podcasts, this one included, mention that refueling pit stops could spice up the action and make an interesting strategy call. As a lifelong fan of American racing, I think the opposite would be true. Granted, I've never sat on the pit wall, but it appears the strategy most teams use is stay out until the gas tank is empty or the yellow flag comes out. I know I'm oversimplifying here, but it seems that fuel consumption, not strategy, dictates when cars come to pits or box. I'm relatively new to Formula One and have therefore not seen refueling in the sport. Is the race distance lengthened, making fueling stops a requirement, or is it still possible to complete the race on a tank of fuel? As the race distance grows larger, so are the chances of being caught out with an inopportune caution or /safety, which is more of a factor of bad luck than poor strategy. This misfortune is exacerbated by additional time on pit lane needed to refuel the car, etc. Thanks for the insight and putting on this show. Well, Mike, you're welcome. Thank you for listening to the show. So
I like that he thanked us for the insight before he even offered it. That's some faith.
Yeah, that is some faith because I can't promise you that we are going to be insightful.
I'm only occasionally
insightful, Mike. So there you have it. So it's a great question. So
it is a very good question.
In terms of Formula One and refueling, Formula One's a little different in that back in the halcyon days of refueling, you have a car that was producing 850, 900,000 horsepower, and you had a fuel tank. And weight is the enemy in Formula One. So if you could run low fuel, you could be quite a bit quicker than everyone running heavy fuel loads. And so the strategy boiled down to the distance of a lap, how many laps you were doing, the conditions of the track, et cetera, et cetera. All those permutations are involved. But there were times that you could short fuel and run light on fuel and be quick. You could be quicker than the teams around you running a full load or even a medium load, that you could gain enough time to cover the delta that it took you to do a lap or a pit stop, or thereabouts, right? So Michael Schumacher did this in Ferrari with great precision. He'd four-stop a race in light fuel. That car was so blisteringly fast on light fuel loads, and it was all completely hooked up, and he could make the most out of that. So you start to negate because you pull out such a lead, and so the other teams... Now, you could run conversely, depending on the track, the length of the race, etc. You could run a heavy fuel load and run long and only one stop it when everyone else is two-stopping, and it would work. It just depends. So having that fuel stop and fuel strategy of having a smaller tank, less weight, you could fuel for speed and pace. It added a lot of strategy. Anything can go wrong during refueling at a pit stop. You could take long. Sometimes the refueling device wouldn't work, and so they'd have to use a second backup. Anything can happen. So it added a lot of strategy. But Grace and I were talking about this on top of the podcast, and she brought up a really good point about tires too, Grace.
Yeah. So I was wondering, because I have often, when this comes up, like, if you could do anything for Formula One to make it better, what would you do? And I am a big fan of refueling. I always say, bring back refueling and just have customer cars. Like, let's stop dancing around that one too. So, so as a big fan of refueling, I was wondering when we switch to one tire manufacturer, right? Because that, I think you need both. I don't know that it would be as exciting if you still have Pirelli or just one tire manufacturer and refueling. I think what really made refueling in the 2000s really interesting was that you had both. And so that was an extra level of strategy, depending on how long the tires you had would last and when you would want to refuel. So, because I think that's always I understand why the FIA really wants one tire manufacturer that gives you all the control. And you can undo things by changing the tire, how the length of the tire wear. But I don't know if you had just Pirelli and refueling, because and this is what we were talking about as well, right? That margin, yes, some cars run better on certain tires, but that margin's really small.
Right.
And it's not like Ferrari gets 20 laps out of the mediums and, McLaren gets 2, right? Like, you need a really large margin in order for that to work. And that's just not the case. And so I don't know. And I don't know of anybody that's, because Formula One didn't have refueling in a single tire manufacturer at the same time, but I think you need both.
They stopped the refueling in 2010, and the new single tire came in a little after that, I think. But so the issue on that is, Mike, is that when you had multiple tire manufacturers, they were made for specific teams. So Bridgestone, Ferrari was the team that Bridgestone was making their tire for, and Michelin was making it for McLaren, let's say. And so in that case, they'd make a tire for Ferrari, and then all the other Bridgestone runners would just run on whatever was made for Ferrari.
They just get their creative tires and have to live with it. Right.
And so that's what they get. However, in the hands of Ferrari, those tires performed differently than the Michelins did with the McLaren chassis, and the Bridgestones operated much differently than the Michelins did on the Ferrari chassis. And then coupled with fueling and running light fuel loads, some tracks, those tires may grain less, they may run better on lighter fuel loads, and they're much quicker, so they could run lighter fuel loads, gain enough time to cover the delta on a pit stop if they had to 3-stop versus 2. It just depends. But it did open up the window. Grace is right. It opened up the window when you had refueling and a multiple tire manufacturers.
Yeah.
So there was a whole host of strategy at play there.
And you used to have unlimited, or pretty darn close to unlimited testing back then too. I'm sure that's a factor as well. Now you have like 2 days at Silverstone, right?
Where you get about 20 minutes. Yeah.
Right. Now they barely get any testing in. So I would think you'd be more willing to take risks with more testing, because you would be able to run more scenarios away from the other teams, right? I mean, that was always now, not only do you only have 6 testing days, but they're with everybody, unless you're Williams and you just don't come to half of them, but you're with everybody. And so then everybody knows what they can guess at what you're doing. It's a lot less secretive.
And if you haven't seen it, I mean, I don't know if you have the F1 app. If you do, there's some, they have an archive that you can go look, or you can Google and see if you can find them. But if you watch some of those races between 2000 and 2000, let's say 4 or 5, when Schumacher and Ferrari were in their halcyon days, you could see a lot of that fuel strategy unpack itself in the early 2000s. I mean, there was a lot going on right there with fuel, and you can see the impact some of that strategy had.
And I always think, there's always this criticism that that races should be decided on the track and not in the pit lane. And that is not true in any sport. And I always think that's such a weird, I understand why it's not a weird criticism. I do understand why people say it, but as somebody who watches that sport and other sports, you think about, basketball, right? There's always the controversy of, resting players, right? And that's all based on fans, right? Like, if I'm a DC fan and we're playing the Lakers, well, LeBron James better play. What do you think? I'm paying to see the Wizards play? I'm not. I'm paying to see LeBron James play. And so there's this whole controversy over how much you can let LeBron James not play because he's older and he's more likely to get injured and he needs rested, or when you bring people out onto the floor. That's all strategy. And it's kind of, I just think that for people to say, oh, I don't like it when it's decided on the pit wall. Well, that is why you have a coach on every team. If it wasn't decided on the pit wall, you wouldn't need a coach. You just send everybody, all 6 guys out there whenever, and they just play, and you wouldn't need lines or anything like that in any other sport. So
right.
I always
it's
think
all
that's
part of the strategy.
Right. Every game is strategy, because a lot of times the strategy in basketball is you let one team become really, do really good in the first half, and then the second half you just demolish them because they're worn out. Because they're doing sprint, not a marathon, right?
Right.
So I always think it's a hokey criticism of racing, but that's often when that comes up when things like we should bring back refueling, and then they're like, well, now it's just on the pit wall.
It's only one of the pit stops.
Because you had such great strategists working against each other, and I think, to me as a fan, it gave me much more to think about and read about, or how many Steve Matchett chalk talks can I watch to figure out what they might do. It just added extra elements to the race, which we just don't get as much of that now. There's just not as much.
There's not. No, there's not. There's still a lot of strategy, no doubt, but it's all around trying to minimize the impact that the constructs like high degradation tires and DRS has. And that to me is a waste of time and resources when we could really be doing real strategy. But having said that, I understand the point is, well, you'd like to see the passing on the track and not the track. Well, keep in mind that there's more than just the driver and the car in the race. There's the team and the strategist, right? So making the right call and the pit strategy for the ultimate undercut. Lewis just had a fantastic undercut a couple weeks ago on Max, right? It was a great undercut and it worked well. So that's all down to Mercedes, and you appreciate the strategy call that James Vowles did, or pick IndyCar with Tim Cindric, who's a genius. Tim Cindric is awesome at that. So anyway, it's a complex game, but it's all part of the strategy. And refueling, and multiple tire manufacturers. The sky was the limit on the different permutations you could run.
It's kind of like playing. Well, this is weird. Fantasy Formula One, right? Like if we all just pick, Lewis, Bottas, Max, you're never going to get anywhere, right? So you have to sometimes just throw in a crazy Vettel, right? Like you have to throw in some crazy thing, because then you're going to get really big points if that pays off. And so I think that's the other thing too, is that you could get more people on the podium, more interesting results, because there were more things to kind of so let's try that, or this should work theoretically. And you could have the mid-pack and the smaller teams be more willing to make those risks in a way that Ferrari or McLaren wouldn't make, right? It wasn't, they have to think the marathon, not the sprint. But if you're a midfield team, you could be like, let's try this. We're going to try this strategy that nobody else is doing and see if it works. And sometimes it would pay off, and you get really a much more interesting midfield sometimes out of that, because you just had more variables to manipulate.
Yeah, agreed.
So
all right, well, that does
solved.
it. Yep, thanks for the email, Matt or Mike. Appreciate it. But that does it for this weekend. Be sure to stop by the website, theparkferme.com. Share your opinion and just do it with decorum and civility as always. If you like the podcast, go to iTunes, give us a good rating, give us a little love over there, and a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. We could not and would not do this without you, and so thank you so much. If you're not a Patreon supporter, you can go to theparkferme.com. On the right-hand side, it says support us. You can click on that. You can do it with Patreon, PayPal, or however you want to do it, and support us. And we are very, very grateful for your support as always. And then also, I believe we'll be back next week with the Belgian Grand Prix. And if I can find Paul, if I can drag him off of a racetrack somewhere where he's out with the Aston Martin team, I'll drag him in and we'll review a race. So until that time, until next week, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camper, saying so long, Grace.
See you in a couple weeks.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.